Today, we're going to explore a really ancient story. It's about a prince who had literally everything you could ever imagine, but his entire world got turned upside down, all because of a single, powerful question that he just couldn't shake.
So, let me just start by asking you this. What if you suddenly realized that the very foundation of your life, everything you thought was real and true, was actually just a comfortable illusion? Well, that's the exact journey we're about to go on.
All right, so our story kicks off with Prince Vipasyin. He's the son of a great king named Manthata, and his life, well, it's a life of unimaginable luxury. He's completely, totally shielded from any of the harsh realities of the world.
For years, his days were just filled with every kind of pleasure you can think of. But, a little seed of curiosity started to grow inside him. He found himself wondering, what's actually beyond these palace walls? He wanted to see his kingdom's gardens, so he called for his charioteer, a man named Yuga, and made a simple request, a request that would end up changing everything.
Okay, this is where things really start to get interesting. The prince's little trip outside the palace turns into this series of 4 encounters, and each one just shatters a piece of that perfect, sheltered world his father had so carefully built for him.
And the difference between these two worlds, it was just night and day. Inside the palace, life was easy, predictable, and totally ignorant of any real suffering. But outside, a completely different reality was waiting for him, one defined by sickness, old age, and ultimately, death.
So on that first trip out, the prince sees something he's never, ever laid eyes on before. A person who's all doubled over, frail, weak, and clearly in pain. He turns to his charioteer, totally confused, and asks, "What's wrong with that man?" Yuga has to explain that the man is sick, a concept so foreign to the prince, he actually had to ask what sickness even was.
After Yuga explained that sickness is something that can happen to any human body, the prince asked this one haunting question. It's a question we all ask ourselves in one way or another, right? Can I be exempt from this? And Yuga's answer was simple and just devastating. No one is exempt. The prince was so disturbed, he went straight back to the palace. But he couldn't shake what he'd seen. On his next trip, he saw an elderly person. On another, a funeral procession carrying a dead body. And each time, he asked Yuga to explain. And each time, he asked that same desperate question, can I be exempt from this? And every single time, the answer was no. His father, the king, tried to distract him with more parties and more pleasures, but it was too late. The spell was broken.
So just as he's starting to fall into this deep despair, his 4th journey shows him something completely new. He sees a person with a shaved head, wearing simple robes, just walking with this air of incredible calm and peace. This was totally different from anything else he'd witnessed. This person wasn't running away from suffering. They seemed to have found a way to face it head-on.
Yoga explained that this man was an ascetic, someone who renounces the worldly life. But here's the key. They don't do it to escape. They do it to dive deep, to understand the real cause of all this suffering, and to find a way to end it for good. For the prince, this wasn't just another strange sight. This was a path. This was a way out.
And that was it. He made his decision right then and there. Inspired by that calm monk, Prince Vipasyin gave it all up. His title, his riches, his family, his entire future as a king, he renounced his kingdom to begin his own search for the truth.
And the power of his decision was just immense. This wasn't some quiet little departure. His choice so deeply moved the people of his city that 80,000 of them also decided to renounce their old lives and follow him on this incredible quest.
So this became the single burning question at the center of his life. He wasn't just trying to make himself feel better, he was on a mission to get to the absolute root of the problem. For years, he dedicated himself to deep meditation, relentlessly trying to find the answer. And then, after all those years of intense searching, he finally had his breakthrough. He discovered what he called the chain of suffering, a step-by-step unraveling of how all our sorrow actually comes to be.
He basically worked backward, kind of like a detective, solving this huge cosmic mystery. He realized old age and death only exist because we are born. Okay, so why are we born? Because of these powerful forces of craving and attachment, this constant wanting, this clinging to things that fuels the whole cycle. And he traced it all the way back to one single root cause, ignorance. But not ignorance like failing a test. This is a deep, fundamental misunderstanding of reality itself. It's seeing things that are always changing as permanent, and seeing a solid self where there's really just a constant flowing process.
And this is the real aha moment. If that kind of deep ignorance is the cause, then its direct opposite, wisdom or seeing clearly, has to be the cure. He realized that if you could just break that very first link in the chain, if you could get rid of that fundamental misunderstanding, the whole thing just falls apart. No ignorance means no craving. No craving means no birth. And no birth means no old age, no sickness, and no death. The entire structure of suffering just collapses. In that moment of incredible insight, everything changed for him. He was no longer just a seeker looking for answers. He was Vipasyin Buddha, which literally means the one who has awakened. He had found the answer, and with it, he achieved complete and total freedom.
But he didn't just keep this amazing discovery to himself. His first thought after becoming awakened wasn't about his own peace. It was about sharing what he found. He decided to return to the world to teach others the path he had uncovered.
So he journeyed all the way back to where his search began, to a place in his old kingdom called the Deer Park. And there, his very first act as a Buddha was to share this path to liberation with the very same people he had once left behind.
And the impact? It was absolutely staggering. At his first major teaching, over 62,000 people are said to have reached enlightenment. At his second, 100,000, and at the third, another 80,000. His personal discovery became a powerful, liberating force for hundreds of thousands of others.
So, what was the secret sauce of his teaching? Well, it boiled down to simple but incredibly profound principles, like this one. He taught that the path required patience above all else. The patience to see things clearly, the patience to endure difficulties, and the patience to transform your own mind. That, he said, was the real path to ultimate peace.
And that really brings us right back to the beginning, doesn't it? The story of Vipasyin is about someone who dared to look past the palace walls and see reality for exactly what it was. And that leaves us with one final thought. If you, like him, could suddenly see the world without any illusions, for the very first time, what would you change?